for y'all.
That's right. It's Gridiron 360. This is Bill. That's Dave.
Hi, Bill.
Hi, Dave. We're going to give you a little NFL Week 9 preview. It's Thursday morning. It's Halloween. Ooh. Okay. Yes, October 31st, Halloween. And we've got a scary matchup, at least for one team tonight, as the undefeated San Francisco 49ers at 7-0 just beat the snot out of Carolina.
Yep.
Traveled down to Phoenix to take on the Arizona Cardinals, who are 3-4-1. Could be an interesting matchup. It's a divisional matchup. Probably not so much. It could also be a blowout. What was some of those numbers I just ran down? I think that we got San Francisco coming in number one in terms of the most rush attempts for a team this year. I think I saw, what did I say? They're number one in quarterback pressures this year from their defense, and Mr. Nicholas Bosa. An interesting little tidbit here. You got the number one overall pick in Kyler Murray for the Cardinals, facing the number 2 overall pick in Nick Bosa for the 49ers.
Yeah.
How you see this one playing, my friend?
Well, I plan on this wonderful Halloween night to scare the crap out of everybody in this neighborhood and go as Joey Bosa, because I think he's going to scare the crap out of everybody in Arizona. I did say that the Niners could be that team that disappoints, but the more I watch them, the more I may be very, very wrong.
Very, very wrong.
This guy is just having fun and balling out, and he's not the only one. This defense it's a beast. It's a beast. Now, they are, I will say this, and again, we've talked about it a lot, they're benefactors of a pretty soft schedule so far, but they're taking care of business, much like the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
And they're doing it convincingly. This kind of, you know what, you said this probably 4 weeks ago or so in one of the games, and you predicted it right. I think it was against Cincinnati. You said it was kind of a Garoppolo game, a get right game, and he did. He did have a game. This is one of those games where even though 49ers have probably the best rushing attack in the sense that they can usually, if they're healthy, throw a bunch of guys at you.
Great offensive line.
Yeah.
Joe Staley's back. Double tight end sets. Fullback Kyle Juszczyk should be back. They just old school.
Yeah, they can pound it, but this is a game where I think they can go to the air a little bit more. They've got Breida and Mostert are banged up. No real signs yet of what's going to happen, but it doesn't sound promising. But then you think they've got a resurging and healthier Tevin Coleman, who just absolutely lit the lamp last week. And Wilson, who was a head injury, right? He had
a head injury, but he'll be
but they're
forced
saying
to be the backup.
Yeah, he's probably going to be forced into action, which may have them go to the air. The frightening matchup offensively for the Cardinals, who, even though, we thought, and we played this in DFS a little bit too, is the Cardinals are the worst against tight ends in the league. And George Kittle has been the best tight end in the NFL this year.
Yeah.
Kelsey's very, very talented.
Darren Waller has been a surprise, but I think more so in terms of expectations of tight ends coming in the year and those that have delivered.
But Kittle was a known entity.
With Skittles.
Yeah, he's been a known entity with very little real flash in the wide receiving core, and just every week is just a ball magnet. And so this is the matchup where I think Garoppolo can do that. I think it's a good matchup also. They started to with Emmanuel Sanders, getting him in, got him action early and got him a touchdown. This is a game, I think, where they can incorporate him a little bit more into the offense. And maybe what you see out of that is Deebo Samuel get a little less coverage. So I could look to them kind of go into the air in the first half, which truthfully is a frightening prospect. I mean, if you really think about their head coach, Kyle Shanahan, and you go back in his history, he's a passing kind of guy. I mean, you look at what he did with the Falcons when they went to the Super Bowl, and he had all those weapons, and they were a scoring machine. Weren't terribly strong on defense compared to most Super Bowl teams, but they could run and gun with anybody. He's starting to get some of those weapons and being able to use some of his imagination. Again, I don't. It's not that they'll suffer on the ground by any stretch of the imagination. I just think this could be an all-around performance. I think there could be a little bit of a coming out party again for the pass game in this. I just do. I think it's a good opportunity for them to test that out. And because if it starts to struggle, it's not like they can't ground and pound with you. And Arizona's defense can be had just about every way. But, I mean, when you look at their DVOA, they are the worst defense in the NFL.
Yeah. I agree with you on the Deebo Samuel. There's been some flashes. I definitely think he's going to be the one that has this, they're definitely not going to be putting attention on him. It's going to be stop the run game, and then next Kittle, and then if there's an opportunity to go look down further, it's going to be Emmanuel Sanders. So Deebo Samuel is going to be the furthest thing from their worries from a defensive scheme for the Cardinals, and I just have this sense that he could have a big night for some reason. I mean, maybe not a ton of targets or a ton of catches, but definitely yardage and a score, maybe more. From the Arizona offensive side of the ball, they are, it looks like they'll be again without David Johnson. Chase Edmonds is out. They picked Kenyon Drake up before the trade deadline. So I assume that, he's going to get most likely the starting job. How much work he'll see, I don't know. I think it's going to be all on Kyler Murray. And quite frankly, with that defense and that defensive front, I think it's going to be tough to run on him anyway. At least straight up. Now, I think the reason Kenyon Drake was brought to Arizona and he's not that great, but he does fit that air raid attack from a pass catching back perspective, which he can do, which is why I think that, Cliff Kingsbury was excited to have him come there. And that's really, I think, why it fits that, fast paced offense with a pass catching back.
And that pickup was a little bit of a have-to pickup. Remember, I mean, I thought they found a good and a potential, maybe even a long-term solution in Chase Edmonds, but, he goes down, and now they're empty. I mean, they had signed, was it Alfred Morris
and Zach Zenner.
Yeah, so they were scraping for this.
And those guys, if any one of those two sees it, I would think Zenner, just because he's been on the field this year. But Morris, Jiminy Christmas, when's the last time he even took a snap? So it's going to be Kenyon. It's going to be Kyler Murray. It's going to be him throwing the ball. That's what it's going to have to be.
Yep.
And, we'll have to see. Christian Kirk still, there's flashes, but consistency isn't there. You do have Larry Fitzgerald. I'm always going to, no matter what type of week he has, he is a reliable resource.
Yep.
But he can't be the only thing for him. And it could be a long night for Arizona tonight. The over-under they're predicting for this game is 43. So it's one of the lower ones of the week. They're not expecting a lot of points scored, but they are expecting the 49ers to score points, giving the Cardinals 10.
Yep. And let me
based on last week, I think that could easily happen. I just feel like, that seems like, I don't know.
In fairness to Arizona, there's an interesting little stat I saw here. In fairness to Arizona, they have come back and won 3 games in a row. But what's interesting to me is they are 3-0 against teams with losing records. Average margin of victory is 3.3 points. Okay, against teams with winning records, they're 0-4 with 3 losses by at least 17 points.
Ooh,
and including a couple of those at home. So this is a team that's definitely a winning record for sure.
Yeah,
with a 0 in the loss column.
Obviously that home field advantage, which in the NFL doesn't always make much of a difference, certain places, but. The home field advantage for this definitely doesn't say much for them when you just rattle off that the losses to those winning teams, even at home, have been pretty poor.
Yeah, it's just you can't. I guess the thing is, the athleticism of a guy like Kyler Murray, and let's be honest, what Nick Bosa walked into and what Murray walked into are two totally different scenarios of teams in totally different places. San Francisco had a horrid year last year, given where they were expected to be. Now, some of that had to do with injuries and all that, so they got a really good draft pick with really, and we've talked about this, a defense that they've been building for a while that's really never just shown up, and then all of a sudden, boom, they're there. So it was a little bit different story there, and Kyler Murray's athleticism will work against teams that don't have the athleticism and ability to cover him. Again, those losing records, but against good teams that can contain him. There's just not enough outside.
And that's what it is. Contain Kyler Murray today. It's going to be on his shoulders, and I think they can easily do that with the speed and on that defensive on the ends and with the pressure on the front. I'd agree. I mean, look, it's, the Kyler Murray thing, I think he'll get better, but the Joey Bosa, it's funny you say that. You're right. San Francisco has stockpiled defensive picks over the years.
Yep.
And it's like, where have they been? And all of a sudden they get one spark in a guy like Joey Bosa, and the whole defense comes to life. It's pretty interesting. That is the NFL nowadays.
Yep.
It can take one superstar like that, even on the defensive side of the ball, just to bring to life this entire group on that side.
Yeah, I think kind of what you're seeing is and I think this team's definitely worth talking about, because I think they're going to be very, very interesting as the playoffs and
they're
the end
going
of the
to be
comes.
there.
Yeah.
I will tell you right now, they're going to be in the playoffs. They're going to be there. Even if it's a wild card, I think they're going to end up with the division, but we'll see.
I think what you found is, like, you look at guys like some first-round picks, we talked about it, and one of them has really got very little playing time, is Solomon Thomas, and he was taken at number 3 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, overall. But they've got guys like DeForest Buckner in there, Eric Armstead. These are guys that I think what you learned out of this team is, and this is, I think, what every great defense needs. Yep.
They got D Ford. They got Jason Verrett along with Sherman.
In the back. Yep, in the back.
Backfield.
I think it's that you need a player that can beat double teams.
Tart. Sorry.
You need a guy that can beat the double team, and I'll pick guys like Khalil Mack, J.J. Watt in his prime, like a guy like that could beat the double team, so you can get some of these guys like DeForest Buckner, D Ford, who they brought in, and these guys that can get active, that get one-on-ones, because, again, those guys couldn't beat the double team, which they hoped they could when they drafted. I mean, DeForest Buckner, I think, was a number 7 overall.
Early,
he was top 10.
Rounder. They
he
also
was
have
top
Quan
10.
Alexander they brought over at linebacker. Don't forget him. He's pretty badass.
It just seems like they made all the right moves at the right time. They spent some money in free agency at the right time, and Nick Bosa, to me, is the bell cow. This is the guy that's going to be He's going to be a defensive player of the year kind of guy over the next 4 to 5 years that you're going to look at. You're going to put him in there with the Von Miller type names, the Max. And obviously he's younger, so he may be the premier guy you compare everybody to going down the line, because he's beating all that right now, because now he is definitely getting all the looks now. No, I mean, his motor, I love his motor. He's way more healthy than his brother was.
Yep.
And I got to be honest with you, when I watched him play, because I've watched Nick Bosa play a couple of times this year for a good amount, but even watching, and I got to watch his brother play against the Bears last week, he is way more physical.
Yeah.
Physical.
Stockier,
plays a little nastier,
muscle.
He's just, and little brother might beat up big brother, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's this is a game where, I think it could be really a positive thing if the Cardinals can keep it close.
Yep.
I just don't know how that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I guess I want to end with this. I do want to say one of the things I am very impressed with the Cardinals, and most particularly Kyler Murray, is this is a kid with the start that he had and the weapons that he had. You could see a rookie quarterback start to hang their head around this time, and I got to give the kid a ton of credit. I've watched him. I've never seen his demeanor change. I've never seen his attitude look a little bit like defeated. The kid just goes out there and keeps pushing and pushing and pushing. And for a guy that's, already starting off undersized, he's starting out without a lot of talent. I like that. That could pay big dividends for him when they start to build this team around him if they do it right.
Yeah, I mean, look, one thing you haven't seen from Kyler Murray, and not that you really ever saw a lot of it in college, but he's a quiet guy. You haven't seen any. He's remained very even keeled.
Yep.
He hasn't been too high. He hasn't been too low. There's no, Eli Manning faces.
Yep.
There's no, Baker Mayfield when he's doing well, jumping up and down faces.
No Mitch Trubisky. Oh my God, what sport am I playing?
Been
Looks
very even keeled. So I think he's been all right. He's the right fit, I think, for what they're trying to do there as they move forward. They just need to add some pieces as they go along.
And that's what he needs to be this year, because you give him 2 or 3 more years and he needs to become that vocal leader. But he's doing it the right way, building his confidence and doing it on the field, earning his teammates' respect. And I don't know. I was a little off on this pick. Only just because there was just too many things that just could go wrong. But his mental makeup seems very good.
Again, like when the Giants were looking for a quarterback, they had an early pick. I just didn't see him fit into a New York Giants system and our type of thing. But this is the perfect fit for the guy.
Yep.
So if he was going to be taken 1 overall, I don't fault it. I mean, this is the right thing. They did bring in Cliff Kingsbury, and he wanted him because that was the type of system he run. In terms of going back to Nick Bosa, I mean, he's got, in my mind, the defensive rookie of the year on lockdown.
Oh, yeah.
Now, this is not without a couple guys under the radar that have been doing very well. And both your guy and my guy, and Brian Burns, the defensive end from Florida State that plays for the Panthers, has had a tremendous season. And Dexter Lawrence, the defensive tackle from Clemson that plays for the Giants, also having a tremendous season. But Nick Bosa is just, I mean, to come into the league as a rookie and do what he's doing, not that you haven't seen it, but it is very seldom you see this type of production right off the gate.
Yeah, and even Devin Bush, you got another guy that's playing really well. But
started off slow, but now he's picking it up.
I think the difference between those guys and this guy is this guy changed the defense, and I think Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence is changing their defense, but their defense is winning and winning well. And I think that's
the leader of their defense.
Yeah, that's
as
the
a
separation.
Rookie. And for Kyler Murray, again, just kind of bouncing back over to him, I think it's a tremendous help that he has a guy like Larry Fitzgerald on that side of the ball, not just on the team, but on that side of the ball, and someone he has to work with and throw to. That guy is one of the best in the NFL in terms of character, if not the best.
Very, very
He's a
good.
class act. He's a shoo-in for a gold jacket.
Oh, yeah.
And, that's really, really helpful because he's an even-keeled dude, too.
Yeah, and what's interesting, too, is his leadership style is very much like what Kyler Murray has demonstrated, so it can be done. And for all the Cardinals teams, and Larry Fitzgerald, to me, one of the biggest disappointments is that the guy really never got to play on that superstar team. That's a guy I would have loved to see get that. But
he had
I give
a few years with Carson Palmer.
Yeah, but just never had that elite team, and he was an elite receiver through much of his career. But I want to talk about it because to me the excitement of the NFL is always seeing this infusion of new blood and how they're going to change the game. And you and I both are very big on character, and it's nice to see. There's been a lot of young guys that have brought good character into the NFL, and that's what's exciting.
Yep, I agree. The 43 over-under tells me they predict it's going to be another Thursday night slow one.
Yep. Or at least for one team.
Yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me. Moving forward, after this week, the Cardinals will take on the Buccaneers. They have a bye. What is the date? Today is the
31st. It's Halloween.
Yeah, that's right. They won't have a bye. So on the 10th. They'll go to Tampa and take on the Buccaneers, and then they come right back out west and take on the Niners again. So 2 games with the Niners in 3-week span. Maybe they can learn something this time and not be so ugly the next time. For the Niners, obviously we know they're going to get the Cardinals in a few weeks upcoming, but they will get the Seahawks coming to their house next week. To be huge because the Seahawks are chomping at their heels for the division. It'll be Monday Night Football. That'll be a good Monday Night Football game.
Yep.
All right, let's move into the Sunday games. The first game on Sunday is the early game, 9:30 a.m. in London. It's a home game for the Jacksonville Jaguars as they welcome the Houston Texans. Looks like Vegas has got the Texans giving the Jags 1.5, and the over/under's 46.5. Texans get a win last week. It wasn't an easy win. They had to battle a little bit in that game, but ended up coming out with a win against the Oakland Raiders, 27-24. And as for the Jaguars, they won last week, correct? Yeah, they won last week as they beat the Jets at home, 29-15. So we have the Texans go into this game at 5-3. The Jaguars go into this game at 4-4. Still leading the division is the Colts at what, 6-2?
Yes.
Okay. So these teams are all, even the Jaguars, 2 games back from the front divisional game. Jacksonville pulls
5-2. Apologize. That the Colts did have their bye week. They had their bye week.
So Jacksonville pulls off a win here. They're tied with the Texans, sitting behind the Colts for first place in the division. This is a big game. This is a really big game for this division.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot left to be played in this division to kind of change the narrative as where we're at right now.
Yep. Deshaun Watson continues to amaze. He's having a great third season. And, look, first meeting that these guys had earlier this season, I think it was week, if I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I think it was week 2. Yeah, it was week 2. Texans beat the Jaguars in Houston 13-12. Okay? In terms of numbers, Deshaun went 16-29 for $159, no TDs, no scores, and then on the ground, he scored 4 carries, 5 yards. This was also Jalen Ramsey still in Jacksonville. He's no longer there. From a receiving perspective, DeAndre Hopkins went 5 receptions for 40 yards and no touchdowns. Carlos Hyde had a good day on the ground, going 20 carries for 90 yards, no TDs. On the other side of the ball, Gardner Minshew went 23 of 33, 213 yards, a TD, no picks. Fournette carried the ball 15 times for 47 yards, no touchdowns. It looks like DJ Chark got in the end zone in the air, 7 for 55 and a TD. So that's what happened the last time these two teams met. Okay? What do you think about this time that they're going to meet? Are we going to get a little bit of the same? It looks like, that Vegas predicts it to be close once again, and that it's kind of a middle-of-the-pack over-under.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people, the pundits out there on the Jags with this one, and it does make sense. So here's why. Here's some of the rationale I've read about is, and this is really pretty basic stuff, some of it. You got a Texan secondary that can get had, not a strong secondary whatsoever. And now their front is struggling a little bit with the loss of J.J. Watt. Well, he hasn't had a spectacular year. He is the leader of that defense, especially the front. And obviously, remember, they traded Jadeveon Clowney, early on in the year. So, you've got a defense that can be taken. This Jags team offensively is incredibly scrappy, and they were doing that without the benefit for a while of a running game. And now all of a sudden they found a running game in Leonard Fournette, which is also, there was a time, Minshew, what was his nickname with the mustache, though? They called him like oh, God, I'm forgetting his name.
Mustachio?
No, but it was something about being like the Jesus or something. Like he was some sort of savior.
Jesus?
I forget
Jesus Christ?
Yeah, I forget the nickname. But anyway, then people kind of started coming off him because he had a couple of games where he wasn't horrific by any stretch of the imagination, but he wasn't as strong. He's started to come back and get that groove. This is a kid that clearly, we talk about mental makeup. I think the kid's got the mental makeup to play in the pros. He may not be the most gifted physically, but he's got that moxie, to use that word. He's got it. Now, something to be aware of with this Jags team, too, is – they're going to look at their schedule right now. And if you look at their schedule coming up, you talked about their ability to go and win. They're on a bye in week 10.
Yep.
But when they come out of that bye, they've got 2 games.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They got a bye week 10. They come out of that bye against with 2 games against the Colts. I believe.
Again, chance for the division. They
Yeah.
go to the Colts on the 17th Sunday.
Yep. So then on the week 13, the Jags get the Bucks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then after that, they get
The
the
Chargers.
Chargers.
The Raiders.
The Raiders is probably outside of their divisional games is the toughest game by far. And they get the Falcons.
And they get the Falcons.
So I mean they get to decide it in the conference, and everything outside of that is a totally winnable game for them. And so this is a team that's set up to finish the year very strong. Health is going to be a big part of it. I would have liked to seen them go out and get one decent receiver. I believe DJ Chark has come out and played really well, but Westbrook and the supporting cast Conley have not been consistent enough. But yet Minshew continues to figure it out. So, and remember, this defense is significantly stronger. Now, my last little piece on the Houston Texans, and then I'll let you kind of take it away because I know you know a lot about this team is, all that being said, you got Deshaun Watson on the other side of the ball. Now, I've seen every game that Deshaun Watson has had in the last 5 games, he's had a 100-plus quarterback rating and followed that with kind of a sub-80, about an 80 to a sub-80 quarterback rating, and he just came off a high rating. I don't know if I buy into that, back and forth thing too much. I think some
quarterbacks you can. I don't know.
Yeah,
about
I don't
that
know if
for
Deshaun Watson's the guy. So if you don't really buy into that, you still look at it and go, the guy just friggin' figures out how to win. So that's the tough part for me. Like I see where everybody's going with the Jags, and I like the Jags in the sense that Deshaun Watson doesn't play on the defensive side of the ball, and the defensive side of the ball could be reeling a bit. I feel like Minshew and the running game is starting to get going. But Deshaun could go out there and throw 5 touchdown passes
easily. And I rattle off the numbers in the first game. I think that with Ramsey being gone, not that AJ Bouye isn't great, but I think this is a day where, especially after playing him once already, both Deshaun and Nuke Hopkins, they learn from and look at previous. They're students. And they oftentimes do it together, and they're going to figure out a way to get themselves rocking and rolling in this game where they couldn't do it before, find some chinks in the armor of the Jags D, especially with Ramsey gone, to where they could get things going. Will Fuller is still supposed to be out. And I do think they'll run the ball a bit. They have been giving Carlos Hyde his due, but just enough to make the defense respect the run so it can try to give Deshaun a little bit of a cushion. I think with the number of sacks, certainly not as bad as was in years past. It's not great. But I think what we've seen really more recent games of Houston, he's not been taking as many blows. And I do think that the line is not that great, the offensive line for Houston. So I would attribute most of him not taking as many blows is the fact that they've got Hyde there running the ball. And again, defense has to respect the run a little bit when he gets something on the ground, opening up a little more room and time for Deshaun. Here's my biggest thing, and I was trying to look up the time of possession for each team in that last game. Leonard Fournette only rushed the ball 15 times in that game. In the following week when they played Tennessee, he rushed the ball 15 times. The first week, which was the week prior, he rushed the ball 13 times. Since then, he's rushed the ball in consecutive weeks 29 times, 23 times, 20 times, 29 times, and 19 times. Okay? He's going to rush the ball way more than 15 times in this game, whether they're down or not. Okay?
And he has recently, yeah. So.
That will keep Deshaun off the field. We say it all the time, and that's the recipe. It's not rocket science.
Yep.
When you are facing a good quarterback, the best defense is your offense.
Yep.
Keep the ball in your hands. Keep it away from that guy. And, as great as Minshew's been, and I think he has a lot of potential to sling it around with the holes in the Houston defense at this point in time. But they're going to run the ball, and they're going to run the ball, and they're going to run the ball. It's London. If the weather's bad, it's open at Wembley Stadium. It could be ugly. I don't think that's a turf field, is it? Is it a soccer turf?
No, it's dirt
So, I mean, it's going to be ugly. I just
or
think
grass.
I think you're going to see a whole lot of Leonard Fournette in this game. And just like I said, with Hyde doing his thing, opening up the pass game for Deshaun, this is, Fournette is a much stronger force on the ground than Hyde. And he's going to give Minshew plenty of chances. And he's got some weapons. Conley and Westbrook maybe not be the best in the world, but they're definitely, a fine 2 and 3 cast with DJ Chark taking the top off this thing. I see how it could be a close game, and I don't want to. I love the Texans as my second team because of all the Clemson guys. I don't want to see them go down. I want to see them stay in the hunt. I have a feeling they might take a hit on this one, but. We'll have to see.
Yeah, and again, that's the experts, so to speak, are kind of on them. The one thing about too is the London games have been quirky this year. Everybody's trying to figure out what's the secret. Go early, treat it like a regular week, and I don't think there's really I don't think there's an answer. It's really just how your team responds to that. And so that's what's kind of made those games kind of quirky. So you don't know what you can see in this game. I think that adds a wrinkle to it. And again, I don't think there's an answer because we've seen teams play poorly that have left early and play well that have left early. And it's just been weird. So, this game, but this game really, really matters, especially when you look at the Jags schedule coming up. It gives them a real opportunity.
Yep. We went through the Jags schedule. For the Texans, they'll have a bye as well. And then they'll play on Sunday the 17th. In Baltimore, and then they'll go home and they'll get the Colts. But then after that, they still have the Titans 2 times.
Okay.
They have the Buccaneers, they have the Broncos, but they also have the Patriots.
Yeah. So
this is imperative for them to win this game.
Yeah. And meanwhile, the Colts are still sitting out front, so you got that too. So
yep. So this should be if you're up. And you can catch it. I'm going to try to. I haven't watched a whole lot of the early games on Sundays. Get kind of busy Sunday morning. But if you're up, I'm going to try to watch my man Deshaun Watson and my man Nuke Hopkins get it done. Let's lead into the 1 o'clock slate on Sunday. What do we say, my man?
All right. We got first game is the Bears going to the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles are giving 4.5 to the Bears. Over-under is pretty low at 42.5. I think you're going to see low over-unders with the Bears because of their offense.
Stinkers. Stinkers.
Yes, certainly that's the case. Now, one thing that happened last week with the Bears is they were actually able to get their running game going in a losing effort anyway to a poor Chargers team. Everything says the Eagles should win this game in my mind. But I will say this. This is kind of my feeling on it, and I'm not high on this feeling. The Bears' offense got in the red zone and got inside the 10-yard line several times against the Chargers and couldn't punch it in. If they would have, not to mention they could have won the game with 2 easy missed field goals too as well. They could have got the points there in those scenarios. So 2 missed field goals, makeable field goals. Is that they are not that far from being able to put up a good offensive performance. I don't know that they can. I'm going to be honest. I don't know that they can. But the play was there. Trubisky looked much better. He probably had about 3 or 4 plays where he missed, but he also threw the ball downfield pretty well in that game. He hit some 30-yard passes, a couple of 30-yard passes, a 25-yard pass. So I guess it just depends, and I'm not sold on this. And this Eagles secondary can be had. And the Bears do have weapons. I mean, you can't deny it. They have weapons. They're not playing well, but they have weapons. So if they can get another good running performance, which will be tough against an Eagles front, I think this game's got a little bit of battle to it. And my biggest problem is I'm just not sold on the Eagles. The Eagles just can't figure out how to be consistent. This is a game, again, looking at it on the surface, I'd say the Eagles should win and the 4.5 should be no problem, but I can't bank on the Eagles because of the way they play. Like 1 week they look strong offensively and their defense isn't there. The only real game that I thought they really looked good in was against the Packers, and defensively they gave up some points, which is understandable, the Packers team. But Carson Wentz, again, I mentioned this, he's looking to me at this point more like an okay quarterback to a game manager. And so if this Bears defense can get going and get after him, I mean, he's only throwing for he's not even throwing for 200 yards a game in the last several games. He's not prolific. So that's where I see where it could be a closer game. I definitely don't see the Bears blowing them out. But it's two teams that have played, I think, well below their talent level all year. Bears being far more worse, but again, the running game could help if they can get it going.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's where the Eagles are good on D. They're their defensive front pretty good. Defensively, they come into the game ranked 14th in points allowed, 21st in yards allowed. Their passing defense is 21st in the league. Their rushing defense is 8th. A couple of guys that they didn't participate in practice earlier in the week. I don't know where they're at right now. Miles Sanders, running back, with the shoulder. Jason Peters, their tackle, with a knee, and Nigel Bradham, who I don't know if he played last week when they played the Bills, their linebacker, has an ankle. So 3 key pieces that, if they're not there, could help your team.
Yeah,
and you're right. They can be had through the air. I loved seeing Montgomery get going for you guys. I think they're going to feed him more. I just don't know for how long, because I think he's not going to have as many yards on the ground as he did last week. He had like $125.
Yep.
I don't think the Eagles are that great of a team. I think they're kind of in limbo. They sit at 4-4. You guys sit right now at 3-4.
Yep.
They haven't had a bye. You've had a bye.
And listen, the Eagles, when they've done well, have been able to establish that power running game. That's not
and
exact.
They did last week against what we speak highly of, a good Buffalo defense in Buffalo.
Yep.
And that led them to a win. And it seems like that's the formula for them. Will they stay that way? I don't know, because I think that they're going to have a better chance passing the ball than throwing the ball against, or than running the ball.
Bears are
against
even
your
better
defense.
against the run.
But I know you love them, dude. I fear this could get ugly for the Bears. I fear that this could be a one of those games similar to a few weeks back. I think it was against the Jets, where the Eagles won 31-6 in Philly. They're in Philly. I do feel like they play a little different at home. But that week against the Jets, it was all about Philly's D. They annihilated the Jets. Now, the Jets didn't have their quarterback, and they're fumbling and mumbling, and they suck. I don't think you're nearly as bad as the Jets, but my worry is Trubisky dealing with that defensive front, and Fletcher Cox is, like we talk about, what's his name for the Saints, Cam Jordan. We just talked about Nick Bosa. These guys are guys that are on the defensive line that are game wreckers. I mean, this Fletcher Cox single-handedly can ruin you. He did it last week against Josh Allen, a really good young quarterback.
Yep. Trubisky's got to be able to hit the intermediate to long pass probably 3 or 4 times in this game, flipping the field, that kind of stuff.
And that's the problem. I think Allen Robinson's having a great year, and he's a great receiver. But outside of him, Trey Burton hasn't done anything. Tariq Cohen is not going to be the receiver to get it done down the field for you. Taylor Gabriel maybe for a deep ball, but would you be like, oh, okay, at least we got? No, you wouldn't. You got the one guy in Allen Robinson.
Well, I will say this. One thing was encouraging, but nothing I would bet on is Anthony Miller has played a lot better last week.
Yeah, but that's also depends a lot on start of the year. He was not seeing the field nearly as much as he should have. We had this conversation. Yep. They were dropping, you said it, they were putting Cohen in the slot where he plays a lot of times.
Yep.
And that just, I think that Miller's a really great player. I mean, I said coming into the league, he had moves that reminded me very much of Odell Beckham Jr.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm not kidding you.
I
thought he could have risen to a maybe not that elite level, but to a pretty high level.
Yep.
And I don't know why it hasn't come, if it's because of him or if it's just because of the offense as a whole or the play calling.
Well, I think here's part of what I think happened. I think we struggled really bad with getting the running game going early on in the year, and so we ended up putting in more tight ends, and so we lose him on the field. They opened it up with him. What I like about him is that he will catch tough balls. He's
a really good talent.
Yeah,
man.
he's a guy that they've definitely
really is
underutilized. And I think the Taylor Gabriel, it just isn't a fit right now in this offense. He's a smaller receiver. Trubisky has a tendency to overthrow the balls.
Guys with Cohen and
Yeah,
Miller.
yeah. I think that's the hard part when Trubisky has struggled with his accuracy. The bigger the targets. Now Anthony Miller's not huge, but he's definitely bigger for the slot. I agree with you. Look, it doesn't matter that they're the Bears. I mean, I have to be realistic about who they are. Either this game is a game. I don't no means do I think the Bears blow them out. I don't think that's anywhere in the realm of reality. Do I think the Bears can play with them if they click? Yes. Do I think they could get blown out if they're not clicking? Absolutely.
Yep. So what do we got? We got the Eagles are giving the Bears 4.5.
Yeah.
Seems high, but I get it. 42.5 is the over/under. So not a lot of points expected in this game. Moving forward. The Eagles will get a week off. They'll hit their bye next week. And then they get to take on the GOAT. Good. I hope they kill him. Can't stand the Eagles.
I don't think it's going to be.
The Eagles' road isn't, that daunting. They do have the Seahawks. They do have the Redskins still. They do have the Dolphins. They do have the Cowboys. And they have my New York Giants twice. Once there, once at home. I'm calling it now. I don't care that I'm a New York Giants homer. I like where we're going, and I think we'll end strong. We will win one of the two games against the Eagles. Put it on the board. The Giants will beat the Eagles one of those two games.
All right, so
okay, let's
move on.
You didn't let me go into where the Bears got next.
Nah, I don't care. I don't care. The Bears have a schedule. The Vikings taking on the Chiefs. This would have been a big matchup if Mahomes was going to play. Signs are not really pointing towards him playing. There is no current open line on this game, which leads me to believe maybe there's a little bit of smoke in that Mahomes playing.
Yeah, maybe that Vegas is waiting to actually push that to last minute to see if they actually do activate him.
Yeah, so.
But he was taking snaps.
He's limited, but he's taking snaps.
Matt Moore.
Yeah, but they are saying that it's looking very, very solid. That he'll come back. I think it's against the Titans the week after that.
Yes, they play the Titans next week in Tennessee.
Here's how this is. This is the way I see it. I'll be as brief as I possibly can be so we can get through some more of these games. But Minnesota, again, what I liked, and we talked about this in DFS, we like Dalvin Cook. Minnesota's sticking to a certain game plan. It definitely seems to be working for Cousins. But it's feed Dalvin Cook the ball. Dalvin Cook has got big playability. He can run for 7-8 yards a clip fairly consistently. This Chiefs defense is not good. Not good. I'm sorry. There's just no way around it. And again, you mentioned it about keeping Deshaun Watson off the field. You keep that. Kansas City's passing offense is their game. Even with Matt Moore, who filled in pretty solid against the Packers last week and was able to score some points. I just think they're going to control the clock. It is playing in Kansas City is a very underrated home field advantage.
That's one of the places that in the NFL is tough. That is one.
Very tough.
It's the loudest stadium
Yeah.
Statistically or whatever the meter they ran that one time.
Yeah, so I look for this to be, again, a Dalvin Cook, kind of game. I think Matt Moore can score some points with this offense. The biggest problem they have is their running game is nowhere near what Minnesota can do on the ground. So that's going to be a hard part for them. This is not a team with Matt Moore that's built to play catch up and that ball control. And you're going to wear down that defense. I mean, they're giving up 400 yards a game, this defense. So it's tough. And the only reason they're 15th in points is because they have been allowed to play with leads, and they're not able probably to do this against right now a Minnesota team that's playing probably as good as anybody in the league over the last 3-4 games. So I just think this is just kind of made for them. And again, last week was a week against Washington where everybody said this is what they're going to do. And I always give teams credit because in the NFL, a lot of times you watch offenses and defense try to be contrarian to what the public perception is in order to not be become stagnant, they actually went out and did exactly what they said they were going to do and did it against Washington. And again, Washington's a bad team, but it's still the NFL. It's still the
said
NFL.
it in our DFS podcast that last week, everybody in the stadium and everybody watching, they knew Dalvin Cook was going to be running the ball, and he did.
Yep.
And they know that, and he still did.
Yep.
This is an NFL defense and defensive quarter. You know that. You can plan for that, and he still did. And they didn't have Thielen.
Yeah, and they do it with him in the pass game too as well, which offsets the loss, as you mentioned, of Thielen to Stephon Diggs. So now Stephon Diggs has still been able to put together, good games with that happening. I mean, what do you have, like 143 yards in that game?
Yeah, phenomenal.
So, again, maybe Cousins has found something, even if it's just for the interim. But, I mean, his play has been, even though he didn't score any touchdowns, has been very effective. So this is, I don't know. I think this is a game where Minnesota can do it. Now, if for some reason Kansas City can get a lead, I'm not saying they can't win. I mean, they played tough against the Packers, and the Packers are playing extremely well as well.
Yeah,
so.
They lost with Matt Moore, 31-24 to the Packers.
Yep.
And it was in Kansas City. I mean, here's the thing. First of all, Adam Thielen did practice yesterday. He was limited with the hamstring. But it's, we're moving in the right direction here.
Yep.
And, for what it's worth, Mike Zimmer, the head coach, said last week that he expected Thielen to be on the field for week 9. So all signs point at firing him up in the pass game. With him gone, Stephon Diggs has still been able to get his. The week he went out and was the best week, he caught a touchdown, was his best week thus far of the year. This thing's going to ride with Dalvin Cook, as you said. I think on the Kansas City side of the ball, yes, the run game hasn't gotten through so well, but we also brought this up in the DFS podcast. This could be a game where Damian Williams starts to come into play more than LaShawn McCoy, simply because he's more of the pass-catching back, and not attributed to the fact that LaShawn McCoy, though he does hold the ball flimsily and fumbled last week, I don't think that Andy Reid's going to turn around and be like, you don't play. I think if you see less of LaShawn McCoy, it's simply because of the game plan. Yes, the defense for Kansas City is not very good. What I have seen, particularly in the past 2, even 3 weeks, 3 weeks ago against the Texans, 2 weeks ago against the Broncos especially, and even a little bit last week, was more pressure on the quarterback than I've seen out of them this year. And that's, their defensive coordinator is Steve Spagnuolo. He's been several places. Most notably, he was a defensive coordinator for my New York Giants when we beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl. And his scheme was the NASCAR package. It was the NASCAR package. Those DNs coming like hell off the backside, the D tackles getting a great push up the front, and then using your linebackers to either blitz in a gap, an A-gap blitz, or coming around as an extra guy off the edge with the edge rusher. And I think that due to the fact their secondary has been probably the worst part of their defense, that's the only saving grace that he's had or could go to, is let's try to put some pressure on the quarterback in that quote-unquote NASCAR package sense. I think that they'll try to do that to Cousins, and I could see Cousins, maybe he's had some great weeks. I could see him coming back down to earth a little bit in this game and being the Cousins we recognize. But at the end of the day, it's Dalvin Cook. It's Dalvin Cook, and it's more Dalvin Cook. Here's the last thing I will say. Minnesota sits at 6-2, okay, with games coming up against Cowboys, Broncos, Seahawks, Lions, Chargers, Packers, and then the Bears. The Chiefs, however, sit at 5-3, okay? They have games coming up. We said against the Titans, Chargers, Raiders, Patriots, Broncos, Chargers, Bears. They lost to the Packers last week. They lost with Mahomes a couple weeks prior to Houston.
Yep.
One of the reasons I'm trying to decipher whether even a 50-60% healthy Patrick Mahomes is going to be better for them than Matt Moore, because they can't really afford to be losing any more games. They just can't.
Yeah, I would say this, though. Here's the thing about the kneecap that I've read a little bit about, and mind you, it's the internet, so of course it's true. but reading about the kneecap injury is, if it's stable, it's not like, and remember this, before getting hurt, Patrick Mahomes had an ankle injury that he re-aggravated. He got in week 1. He re-aggravated it a couple weeks before that. They started playing not as well. The best part is he gets to rest that ankle. The kneecap thing, again, you remember they popped it back in place, it's not a, from what I understand, like a pain-driven
It was a clean. They said, no tears in any tendons, no fractures in any bones.
Yeah, it's about creating stability. It's not like one of those things like when you rotate on your ankle and you've got a sprained ankle where all of a sudden you feel a twinge and it starts to impact the way you throw. So by resting that ankle, assuming the rest was long enough, I'm not sure that he's going to be 50-60%. Like, it's just not, from what I'm reading, it's not that type of injury. And the rest on the ankle may, in a way, have been a blessing. So anyway, I want to see it. I'm definitely not a medical expert. I just, in hearing that, I thought that was kind of interesting and see how it plays. Because I think if it was a 50-60% Mahomes, you do really have to ask that question.
Yeah. So, again, we don't have any lines on this game. I believe that a lot of that has to do with the Mahomes injury and kind of touch and go, thinking Vegas is waiting to hear that. If we see something, we'll throw it out there. But we will move forward.
Yep.
We've got the Indianapolis Colts this week going to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. The Steelers are getting a point, and the over-under on this is 42.5. What say you, man? What say you? You got any opinions? I mean, you're looking at a 3-4 Steelers team who's surging, who I said last week could still take that division from the Ravens. The Ravens have to play the Patriots this week. So obviously
they could gain a game.
They could gain a game. And last week they took care of business, even though they started off slow against the hapless Dolphins. They come back and they get the win as need be, 27-14. And on the other side of the ball, the Colts also got themselves a win last week. And they're, like we said just a minute ago, sitting in the top of the AFC South.
Yeah, here's my thing about the Colts is I like them. You had a game with Brissett where it wasn't one of his better games. But even still, they figure out ways to win. In a way, they're kind of like Buffalo to me. I don't think they're going to blow anybody out, but they just still manage to figure out different ways to win games. They did it with defense in this game. They didn't even run that great. They ran okay in this game. I look for Brissett to rebound a little bit. I think Brissett's pretty much a 65% passer, probably going to stay in that 210 to 250 yard range and can get you a couple of scores. And that allows Marlon Mack to have a little bit more of an open look. I like them. The Steelers, I like where they're going as a team. I still think it's going to be a struggle. Like if the Colts put up 14 points and have a 14-0 lead, they're not going to squander it like Miami was squandered it in that game. I think it's going to be closer in this game. I kind of think the over-under is kind of low. I'd be more apt to take the over. I don't think it's going to be a 31-27 game, but I mean, really, I could see this game being like 27-21. I could see a game like that. I think the Colts rebound. I think they get it done. I like Brissett. I think Frank Reich, he's just a good coach, and I think right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball for the Steelers, they're a little bit outmanned man for man, and I like the front of the Colts, and I like their offensive line. It's not as good as I had thought it was going to be, but it's still pretty good.
Yeah. Their offensive line, I think, for the Colts is great. They're very underrated. You mentioned Marlon Mack. I kind of go the other way. I think that what's been surging and probably what's helped the Pittsburgh Steelers get the wins they have and start on the upswing is their defense from the
Sure.
front. We talked about Devin Bush as a rookie, playing out of his mind, coming from Michigan, linebacker, good pick. But first few games of the year, we didn't see anything. Now he's more comfortable, and he's playing like a madman. And I just feel like that they could really, really give a hard time to Marlon Mack. Now, guy like Naheem Hines, who's the patch casting back for Indianapolis, might get more work in this game. I think it is going to be a game where it's on Jacoby Brissett to get it done. A little bit of a quiet week for my man T.Y. Hilton. It doesn't last very long. I actually think that this is a game where he could go berserk.
I got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
What's patch casting?
Did I say patch casting? Ah.
Aha!
Yes.
Aha!
Good for you. GFY. You know what that also stands for? Go burp yourself. Yeah. I think this could be a big game for T.Y. Hilton. I think that again, it's important for the Colts to stay on track because they have the lead in the division, but not by much. They still have to, ahead of them. They have teams like, the Dolphins and the Bucks on their schedule, but they got to play the Jags twice in their division. They got to play Tennessee in their division, and they have the Texans still in Houston. So it's important for them to stay on top. But the Steelers can't afford to lose either if they want a shot at this thing. They do have a much easier looking path ahead of them with teams like the Rams in Pittsburgh. I don't think they're that great. They got the Bengals, they got the Cardinals, they get the Jets, they get the Browns twice, and then they have a couple tougher games with the Bills and the Ravens last game of the year. I think that they're on the right track in Pittsburgh. I just feel like Indy's on a roll right now, and I am bought in with Frank Reich. I think he knows how to manage this team offensively the right way, and we've said all season long that defense, very underrated, may not be phenomenal, but very stingy. That defense. I mean, the Colts defense.
They're 12th in points allowed, and Pittsburgh 11th. So these are two teams that are playing defense.
Yeah, I mean, let me just run it down for you. Outside of getting throttled first game of the year by the Patriots, I mean, they've done pretty good. I mean, they've held teams, Seahawks put some points on them, but, 49ers 24. But 49ers, we know, are a good team. Bengals 3. Ravens beat them the first time, but it was in overtime, 26th, because they matched them. Chargers 17. Dolphins 14. So you see the progression of less and less points by the opposing off. I am sorry. I am wrong. That was the Pittsburgh Steelers. No wonder I'm messed up. That was my rewind. Let's go back to the Colts since the beginning of the year. They allowed the Chargers to come out in an overtime game, first game, to beat them 30-24. But outside of that, they allowed Titans to put on 17. The Falcons to put 24 on them, but keep in mind, they didn't have nearly as many points. It was garbage time catch up, and the Colts were probably just sitting in prevent. They let the Chiefs. They beat the Chiefs. Chiefs only put 13 on them. They beat the Texans a couple weeks ago, who put 23 on them, and last week the Broncos with 13. Not a lot of points that opposing offenses are scoring on that Colts defense.
Yep.
That's where I was trying to go, just like cast patching, whatever. So at the end of the day, I think that this, I think the Colts will take this game. Could be close. Could be. It depends on how Mason Rudolph plays, I guess.
Yep.
Next game, New York Jets travel down to Miami. Supposed to be some bad weather down there.
Yeah, and actually, I did check that. It is supposed to not be quite as bad as we thought. I guess the weather pattern's changing a little bit. So chance of, rain and thunderstorms, but it's less than 50% right now. So we were kind of, the expectation was it was going to be a lot more rainy than that. So
yeah,
that makes this game even more of a stinker if it was to happen.
Yeah, low over under 41.5. Dolphins are getting 3 from the Jets. This could be a game where Sam Darnold kind of gets closer to what we saw when he came back and they played Dallas and won. One of the guys when we were looking at fantasy, I'm feeling Robbie Anderson. I just feel like he may not see a lot of targets, but he could see the end zone and could see some yardage in this game. Le'Veon Bell, is this the week you see Le'Veon Bell look like the Le'Veon Bell of old? If any game were to be that, I would expect it to be this one against the Dolphins. But, the Dolphins put up a little bit of fight last week against Pittsburgh. They came out and were winning 14-0.
Yep.
Fitzpatrick is definitely the right fit for them where they're at. He's been getting Preston Williams involved, Devontae Parker involved, Albert Wilson involved. Now, mind you, Kenyon Drake is gone, so Mark Walton will get the keys to the backfield in Miami. But this could very well be a game where the Dolphins pick up their first win of the season.
Yep. Yeah. It could. The other thing you talked about, you brought this up, and then we talked about it with some of our fantasy stuff is what's the mindset of a Jets team right now? Obviously they had a lot of guys on the trading block. Some we believe were more realistic than others, but one as an example was Jamal Adams. He was very upset, came out on social media about being, having a conversation the week before with his GM saying, I want to be here for the long haul, and then finding out his name was on the block the next week, and that really bothered him, talking about loyalty and that kind of stuff. So, again, with all this, lack of performance, you got a quarterback that's just had 2 stink games in a row, and then all that is what is their mindset? And I think that could add to the idea of did the Dolphins come out? Because with Fitzpatrick, they are definitely that's the guy that's going to be able to win them some games this year, in my mind. Less playing for the future, but it's the guy that can win them some games. And I expect the Dolphins to be in the hunt for Tua, and and not that he's the only quarterback out there, but so the future is not impacted, I think, by this too much. So again, this game there's nothing really to be played in this game. Maybe see the Jets have a little bit of resurgence, but also could the Dolphins sneak in their first win of the year?
Yeah, we're going to speed it up. I know we've been dragging on here this morning. It's Halloween. Weird things are happening. But I do expect that the Jets offense looks much better this week than it has the past 2 weeks. It's like, they had that great game beating Dallas at home, and then they just went in the tank. I don't think that's who they are. I expect them to be a little bit better offensively, and this is the team to do it against. But I think there's a very good possibility the Dolphins could get their first win this week. You're looking at the Jets currently sit with a record of 1-6. The Dolphins sit with a record of 0-7. The Jets on the horizon get to stay home. It's a home game for them, and have my New York Giants. I hope we pound them into the dirt. But moving forward, what division they're in. They get the Redskins, which is nice. They get the Bengals and Dolphins again, which is nice. They have to play the Steelers. They have to play the Bills. It looks like they already had their 2 bouts with the Patriots. So, not easy games there, but a few that they could win for the Dolphins. Yeah, it's going to get tough for them too. They've got the Colts coming up on the road. They got the Bills at home. They got the Browns. They got the Jets again. They get the Bengals. They have to play the Patriots, the Eagles, and the Giants. So, not going to get much easier. This is the one I think if they're going to steal a win, as they weren't able to do it against the Redskins, this might be the game. I'm looking down their schedule.
Maybe they get Cincinnati at home at least.
Yes, they do. Maybe
that may be their other shot.
Yep,
but it's getting slim.
Yep. Next game is the Washington Redskins. They're going up to Buffalo. They're taking on the Bills. Last week, the Bills gave up 31 points at home. That defense we're pretty fond of, to the Philadelphia Eagles, who we don't, it's a different team week to week with the Eagles, as we've talked about. Looks like Dwayne Haskins may get the start this week because Colt McCoy's still out. Case Keenum, what's the word on him?
Last I heard, it's sketchy at best. So if this is a Haskins show, to me, with whether Case Keenum plays or not, the Bills are able to get this done. This might be, you know me, I said when they had a big spread, I was like, nah, I don't buy it because that's just not the way the Bills win. I think the Bills definitely get right. This is one of those spreads. It's pretty high. I think it's actually the highest of the week. No, sorry, the Cardinals.
The Bills are giving 9.5 to the Redskins. It's the lowest over-under of the week at 37, so they're saying it's all Bills.
I think they can cover it.
I
do. If there's a game they could cover, a big spread, this is it.
Here's the one thing you may see. I mean, I don't think Haskins will do phenomenal. He's definitely going to throw a pick, maybe more. But, rookie Terry McLaurin has been the bright spot, I think, for the offense, for the Redskins. A little quiet last week. I could see a deep ball touchdown to McLaurin because what Haskins does have is a big arm. But you may only see that once, and that could be the only offensive that you're like, whoa.
Yep.
I do think that it's a little bit of a get-back game for the Bills. I don't think that defense, probably coming off last week, is very happy with their performance, and I think they're going to take it out on the Redskins. Good team to take it out on. Hey, did you hear Trent Williams didn't get traded? Oh, now they're going to sign him. Oh, guess what?
Well, not sign him. He was already signed. He's going to report.
Now he's going to report. Oh, guess what?
He fails his physical.
Da-da-da-da-da.
Because his helmet had discomfort.
Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.
What? Helmet disc. Is that AB? AB, did you get traded?
I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. It looks like Darius Geis is starting to get healthier. Whether he's going to play or not, I don't know. Chris Thompson should play. He didn't last week. He is questionable. It doesn't matter. The Redskins are a mess. John Brown could go nuts in this game. Devin Singletary had a modest game. He's definitely going to come back and take over that backfield from Frank Gore because he's the young rookie. That's why they got him.
Yep.
But I think it could be Josh Allen.
Yeah, and I mean, defensively, here's the thing.
Running, throwing, making tackles.
Washington has to be able to run the ball in this game. They actually ran the ball a couple of times fairly well, even in losses. But this is a team that's fourth in yards allowed per game, which means they don't bend even, because you'll see a lot of teams that'll rank in the top 10 in points per game, and then their yards per game is really more middle of the pack. This is a team that just attacks. If they shut down the running game and force this ball into Haskins' hands, which they've clearly demonstrated they can do, oof. That's all I got to say. It could get ugly. So let's move on to the next game. We got the Nashville Titans heading to Carolina to the Panthers. 3.5 spread on this one. Panthers giving it to the Titans. A 42 over-under. I definitely would feel the Panthers, but, man, last week I thought they would be able to put up a much more inspired fight, and the Niners just obliterated them. And I mean, taken apart. They looked like one of the worst teams in football, considering they have, a quote-unquote MVP candidate on their roster who still, at least from the running game, went off with 14 carries for 117 yards and a score.
And the offense runs through him, and they still got the snot beat out of him.
No, I do think in this game that Kyle Allen, he had his signature rookie game. I think he rebounds, but his rebound is not like he's going to throw 4 touchdowns. So if McCaffrey can get his, then I do still think the Panthers win this game. I think, they're coming back home. That helps them. I'm not a huge believer in the Titans overall, but I will say they've gotten a spark from Tannehill, and you can't deny that. And this is a Titans team that can run the ball against the Panthers team that can give up the run.
I was just going to say, I think that, the Panthers have been giving it up to running backs the past few games. And this could be a game where Derrick Henry, especially with Tannehill, able to sling the ball a little more than Mariota. It's going to be sort of the opposite of the Viking Chiefs situation, where Dalvin Cook running the ball sets up the pass. It's going to be Tannehill passing the ball, setting up the run for Derrick Henry, and him getting some holes that he can take that massive self of his through, that man-child he is. Let's see. The Panthers are giving 3.5 on this one to the
Yep.
Titans. Over-under is 42. I don't know, man. I'll tell you this. I think it's a nice boost of confidence for Kyle Allen that after a bad game and the chatter about Cam getting healthier, potentially playing, that they're not benching Kyle Allen after that bad game for Cam. Going to give Cam another week to rest, I guess, or figure out their quarterback situation. Great boost of confidence for Allen.
Yeah.
Let's see how he takes it, because if he falls flat on his face again, Mr. Newton will be back in the fold next week.
Yeah, and just something of interest, you mentioned earlier in this about Brian Burns. Brian Burns has a wrist injury and is playing in a hard cast. For those pass rushers that really depend on speed and leverage and hand play to get themselves open, which Brian Burns, if you know, is probably more of your undersized DN. He's very tall and long. Is really kind of created a problem. He only played about 25% of the snaps last week. So, the Panthers kind of lose some of that pass rush that they've done well. I mean, they were, I think through like week 6, they were leading the NFL in sacks. So they've slowed down there in that aspect because their rookies not been full speed. So, it kind of remains to be seen. And Tannehill has shown an ability to scramble and to be able to get down the field and throw some touchdown passes. They've got some big wide receiver targets. So this could be a little bit of a battle, I think coming down to it. It's going to be interesting.
Yep. I mean, you seem pretty. You're saying the Panthers should be able to take care of it. I don't know.
I don't know if they'll take care of the points. I just think they can win the game.
Again, the Titans, much like the Colts, they're like the other defense in the league that's very underrated, not talked about a lot, but very stingy. So Kyle Allen is still not a veteran. And this offense still runs through McCaffrey, and they're very good at covering the run. Question is are they good at stopping the run at San Francisco? I don't think so. And San Francisco, though they did beat up on Carolina, like you said, McCaffrey still got his between the air and the ground. He will again today, as always. But I think the Titans have a shot at this one. I do. So we shall see.
No, I would agree with you. I mean, they're 9th in total defense and 4th in points.
So we will move down to the 4 o'clock slate on Sunday. We've got the Detroit Lions coming off a nice win against my Giants last week at home, traveling out west to the Raiders. Looks like this is one of the higher over-unders, actually, of the week with a 50.5. And the Raiders are giving 2 to the Lions, I guess, because they're at home. The Raiders have played well. A couple of things to note. Defensive tackle Mike Daniels for the Lions has a foot injury. Cornerback Darius Slay with a hamstring and Amani Arwarie with a knee. They were limited in practice this week. They did get out there, but that secondary is banged up. They don't have a lot of depth, so I anticipate those guys will go. On the other side of the ball, Josh Jacobs, Tahir Whitehead, the linebacker, Tyrell Williams, and more so, guard Gabe Jackson and Trent Brown, their tackle, all full participants in practice this week. Jacobs, Whitehead, and Williams with limited sessions. But we thought Jacobs wasn't going to go last week because he was sitting out most of the week, and he did. But with those two linemen coming back, that's good news, I think, for their offense. And you should see another week healthier on that shoulder from Jacobs. I anticipate he'll get back to maybe more of the load we've seen in past weeks. Look, this could be another good week. We said in our fantasy for Matt Stafford, everybody expected with Carry-On going down that this Ty Johnson kid would get the load. It wasn't. It was this other guy. I can't remember his name. Do you? Who knows? Who cares? They're not going to be running the ball a whole lot for a while in Detroit, maybe even for the rest of the year. It's all going to be a passing game with Stafford, with Galladay, with Marvin Jones, with Marvin Hall, with Marvin the Martian, T.J. Hawkinson. And they've looked all right. They've done all right. They're fighting in your division at 3-3-1 right now. The Raiders, I think, also have been very surprising. 3-4 right now. This is 2 points. The Raiders giving 2 at home. It's pretty much a pick 'em. I do think that there will be points scored in this game, as Vegas is thinking, and I think that it could be a little bit of a back and forth, kind of as the Lions had last week with the Giants, and really the Raiders, they've done the same. Last week they didn't, the Packers got up on them. I'm sorry, that was 2 weeks ago against the Packers. Last week, the Raiders played the Texans, and they lost by a field goal. They hung with them.
Yep.
The week before, they were getting blown out by the Packers and marched back, never gave up.
Yep.
Week before that, against the Bears, they won that game.
them.
So this is a better Raider team. They're definitely their arrows pointing in the right direction, and I do think John Gruden has a lot to do with that. Good for him. Good for him. I don't mind Gruden whatsoever.
Chucky,
yeah.
well
Chucky.
timed with the new movie coming out for Chucky this year. So
Yep.
it was a new Chucky year.
So, anyways, I think this could be anybody's game. I think it could be a good day for Josh Jacobs. Darren Waller, I think, is always in the fold. Tyrell Williams might have a little difficult time because I think very highly of Darius Slay, and he'll play. And on the other side of the ball, I think it's the Stafford, it's a Galladay, it's one of the Marvins, Hawkinson. I'm still waiting for it. He's gotten looks. He hasn't done great. He's young, but I do think it could be anybody's game.
Yeah, and the thing about the Lions is most teams will go, oh my God, you lose your running game and you're kind of in trouble. But there's a couple of teams in the NFL that have been able to live for a long time loaded on the passing game, and the Lions have been one of them. Stafford's really done it throughout most of his career, with a lot of different receivers through time. Obviously they had Calvin Johnson for a long time, and
Megatron.
Yeah. And then, we found a guy in Galladay who has really burst onto the scene and been able to play that lead receiver role. He truly is. I think now you could put him in that elite class of number one receivers.
Maybe on the low side.
Yeah. I mean, he's not Hopkins, but he's definitely. I mean, this year you'd put him well above like an Odell Beckham and some of those names.
Definitely
So that's pretty impressive. I just think the Lions, just because they've had a long history of this, they know how to do it. And I'm talking more about the players on the field. Obviously, that's not what their coaching staff envisioned when they brought Patricia in. But the fact is, now that they have to do it, they can. So that keeps them in. Because, both of these defenses are not particularly strong overall. You've got 24th and 26th in points from Detroit to Oakland, and then 31st and 24th in yards allowed. So they've been known to give it up. They do it offensively in different ways. Obviously, the Lions are heavily in an air attack. The Oakland is far more balanced offensively. The question will be, can Josh Jacobs take a step forward and be able to take some more snaps in the running game? I do think this one could go either way. I think they're both two teams playing to their strengths offensively right now, and that could make for a very interesting game. I totally understand the line in this. I could see this game getting into the 30s.
Yeah, look, neither team really is out of the hunt in their division because of what's happened with Mahomes. And the Raiders could possibly get close. And, when Mahomes gets back, that gap might separate again. But they need to take advantage while he's not there or while he's banged up. And for the Lions, very much in it. That division could cannibalize itself a bit as things progress. Like Galladay's, this is a 6'4", 214-pound dude. He runs good routes. He has hops.
Good hands.
Yeah, he's got great hands, long arms. So, he gets up there. In the past 3 games ago against the Packers, he had 5 receptions for 121 yards. Didn't see the end zone. Had 1 reception for 21 yards and no TDs against the Vikings. That's a really good D, and he was getting strapped to a really good corner in Xavier Rhodes probably most of the time. And then last week against the Giants, 6 for $123 and 2 touchdowns. So Galladay seems to get it done, and Stafford seems to find them, especially when they play less than spectacular
And
defense.
mind you, in that 1 week game, that was a game where Marvin Jones went off and had 3 touchdowns.
Yep. So somebody had to get it. All right, good. Let's move on to the next one as we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers traveling out west to the NFL's version of the 12th man and the Seattle Seahawks. Seahawks are giving 6 to the Bucs on this. 51-point over-under. I could definitely see that over-under. I'm a little questionable on that 6. I think this could become more of a shootout. I think some of the things we read this week, we mentioned it, I think, in the fantasy cast for the seasonal, maybe the daily. Jameis Winston's back is a little bit against the wall. It was at the beginning of the year. Produced some good games to kind of take the pressure off. Has had some less than spectacular weeks the past few. Pressure's back on. So he does seem to step up sometimes when the pressure is on. Is this going to be that week that he gets back to form? If it is, I mean, Mike Evans had a phenomenal week last week. Chris Godwin's having a phenomenal season overall. I definitely think this could be a week where he gets back on track, just like you said. It's very seldom you see Evans go 2 weeks back-to-back having games like that. There is, just like Detroit, really no running game in Tampa Bay. No. Peyton Barber is a backup, maybe third-string running back at best. Not very good NFL running back. Ronald Jones, they drafted him to be something last year. He got hurt, didn't play, came back, wasn't good enough. He's shown flashes, I think, in one game. That experiment's probably going to end. That was probably a failed pick. I thought that it could be better, but it's probably a failed pick. This is going to be a game with the Seahawks that like to run the ball, but this is a good run D in Tampa Bay. So that running game that we expect, I don't expect them to go away from it. It's just not the MO of the Seahawks or Pete Carroll. Even if they're not successful, they will still feed the ball. But their success on Sunday, I imagine, is going to come from the arm and the legs of one Russell Wilson.
Yeah, I will say this. The Seattle defense, 2 things about Seattle this year. Their Seattle defense is nothing like what it's been in the past. It's not the dominating defense that we've seen. They're able to make some good plays. They have some athleticism, but it's just not been there the way we expect it to be. They also have not been particularly strong at home. I mean, they had a very, very close game that they had to come back and win against Cincinnati to start the year. They got beat by a Baltimore team, was it 2 weeks ago, that they didn't – They underperformed in that game, and it wasn't particularly close. Gave up a lot of running yards to Lamar Jackson. Again, that's not what Tampa does, but what's kind of interesting is the strength of Tampa's D is the strength of Seattle's offense. The real question here, and I think to me this is the difference in this game.
Something's got to give.
Right. Tampa's 5th in scoring, and they're 11th in yards per game. I mean, Jameis does sling it. He gets his yards, but where the big difference is that the Tampa Bay team is -5 in turnovers, where Seattle is +7 on the year. I think that's probably where I would say this game is going to be the difference. I do expect this to be high scoring. Seattle's, again, they've given up points, and this is a team that can score points. And I think you're right, it's through the air. But I do think the turnovers are ultimately going to be the play. Russell Wilson does not turn the ball over, and Jameis Winston does.
Yeah, this could be a game where you see, not that he hasn't been an impact, but nothing that has come up on highlight reels. Sans, I think, one game where he had a pick, but this could be a game where you definitely see a little Jadeveon Clowney because, look, Winston gets back there and sometimes holds on to the ball way too long. And
a lot he holds on the ball way too long.
Yeah, and that's just going to get, this is a big, fast guy. He's still very talented, and if he gets in the backfield, this could cause a nightmare for Jameis. But so I do think you might see a little Jadeveon in this game. But at the end of the day, I think the Seahawks win it. I don't know if they cover that 6, but I do think they'll win this game.
Yep.
They have to keep pace with San Francisco.
Yeah, they still do have 2 games left with San Francisco, so the division is still a little bit open right now. So the next game that we're going to go look at is going to be the Packers heading out to L.A. to take on the Chargers. Chargers are getting 3.5 points from the Packers in this game. Let me say this. I think this is a Packers win. I think the Packers can cover this with no problem. The key with the Packers is they've got balance when they need to take advantage of it, along with a Hall of Fame quarterback who can just beat you on his own through the air. This is one of those teams when they have to pass can, but this year have found a running system that can be explosive. Chargers, on the other hand, I look at them again. I mentioned with the Bears. Bears had a lot of shots inside the red zone. Those are things that the Packers don't walk away with field goals or missed opportunities. They score in those scenarios with their offense. So they're a better team. So I see them being more explosive there, and I don't know that the Chargers can really give them a run for their money in this game. The Chargers, again, last week they scored a touchdown on the ground, but really, Melvin Gordon was a non-issue. Eckler was even worse, running the ball. I mean, he had the one 18-yard touchdown, but other than that, every other part of the running game was held in check. So, I mean, it means that Phillip Rivers has to go toe-to-toe with Aaron Rodgers and Aaron Jones, and to me, that's no contest.
Yeah.
I just think there's nothing there.
Yeah. It looks like Devontae Adams, his toe injury has hampered him, and he's been out the last 4 games, but he did get back to practice Wednesday.
Even worse.
Oh, God, I hope he's back for my fantasy team. I have him everywhere. Really need Devontae back, but if that happens, it spells even more doom for the Chargers. I think their only hope is that, their defensive front can give Aaron Rodgers fits with Bosa and Ingram. But if they do that, you just mentioned it, and I think this is the way it's going to go anyways. It's going to be a lot of Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Aaron Rodgers has lit up the scoreboards on his own the past 2 weeks. I'm not saying he's not going to have a good game. The Chargers secondary, I think, is what's better on their defense than their front, surprisingly, because they do have guys like Bosa and Ingram out there. Just, Joey's not nearly as performing the level of his brother Nick. And I just feel like this could be a game where they hit the ground with Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Aaron doesn't need to do a whole lot. I think they could get a lead up early, and even if he does sling the ball, it might do it early, and they'll get a lead on this team, and they'll just salt it away on the ground.
Yep.
That's the way I feel. You went over the line on this. It was a 47.5 over-under. Chargers getting 3.5. I could see it. I could see why that's higher. It could potentially even go over. It could be close. I mean, look, Chargers right now are they're sitting at 3-5, and the Packers are 7-1. So the Chargers are really. I know I just said at 4-4 Oakland was in it, but the Chargers at 3-5, I think they're pretty much on the outside looking in. I don't know how they can climb back in. Maybe some miracle. But that said, they're, in my mind, because the NFC North, where the Packers are leading the division, is very tight. There's not much room for error, whereas the Chargers really have nothing to lose. And they could surprise the Packers. I don't think they're going to win, but giving them 3.5, it could be, or getting 3.5, it could be close. They could keep it within that very easily if Rivers, he's at home, if he has one of his games. The Mike Williams could come to form this week. Keenan Allen's a little banged up. I think he'll play. The Packers defense has been decent, though, so we'll have to see. But, again, the only reason, if it's close, it's in my mind because the Chargers walk in with they're at home, and they walk in with a mindset of, what do we have to lose at this point? The season's pretty much done, and if we lose this game, you pretty much can call it over. So, good talk, Russ. I think the Packers roll again.
Yep.
The Cleveland Browns will go to Denver to take on the Broncos. Vegas has a 39 over-under. Broncos are getting 3.5. Joe Flacco is not playing because of a neck, I think they said, or maybe just because he ran his mouth and spoke the truth. I hate that.
And what was the truth? What was the truth?
The truth was,
bring me some truth.
The truth was that he felt that especially their offense and the play calling wasn't trying to compete, that they were not being put in positions to compete and win games, that they were just kind of ho-humming it, that he felt like at no point in time there was plays that were called that should have been called because they're down in games, and it's kind of like that whole scenario with the Falcons. They're down by multiple scores late in the game, and they hand the ball off. You got to catch up. At this point, you do have to throw. Yeah. I mean, like that, and that's just, I felt like what he, I feel bad because, not that I think he's all worldly, but he does speak the truth. When I mean, fans see it, viewers see it, when teams kind of look like they're giving up. It's very visible.
Yeah, I got to be honest with you, though. I know I have a lot of
and Vic Fangio.
I guess I have a lot of time where I've seen him. I don't see that guy doing it. Now, I do see Elway doing it and all this trade rumors.
Fangio's the defensive guy. He's not calling the offensive
plays.
Right,
true. But I will say this, I go back. It's kind of it's an advanced stat, but the DVOA, the defense versus what is it? Overall average. I forget what I think is what it stands for. The Broncos are number 3 behind New England and San Francisco in that, and that you can take it with a grain of salt. But I just think defensively, I think they've played well. To me, there's something that could happen in this game, and if I was to bet on one thing happening, as far as likelihood, this could be a turnover disaster going both ways. Yeah, I think the Browns win this.
What's the guy's name? Brandon Allen.
Yes. Brandon
Allen.
Allen.
If you listen to our fantasy cast, some notes. This is a guy that was on some practice squads in Jacksonville and elsewhere, and couldn't beat out Blake Bortles for the job as he was spiraling out of his NFL career in Jacksonville.
Bortles.
I can't even remember where he went, but he went to the same place Bortles went, this Allen kid, on the next go. Might have been here. And he couldn't beat Bortles out for the job there. So,
not a good look.
Take that as you will, but that's not a good look. You're right.
One of the things I think is health right now. I think the Browns are more healthy than the Broncos because, obviously we talked about some of the people they've been missing this year. Right now you've got, Flacco obviously being out. They just traded Sanders. And again, they had some guys on the block, and so we go back to what is the mindset of this team. But here's the thing is, one thing that Denver can do consistently is stop the run, and Nick Chubb to me would be the X factor in this game. I think Nick Chubb is good enough to run, but at the same time, I think the problem is if you force the ball into the Browns passing game, you force it back into a passing game, Baker Mayfield has been one of the worst passers in football under pressure, and the offensive line is not very good. It's just not very good, which says something for Nick Chubb and what he's been able to do behind this line, but they certainly are worse in pass protection. And if you get into that, that's a thing that the Denver can exploit, and this could get ugly. And I think it goes back to me, who can win the running game and control the turnovers. That's where this game is all about, and I don't particularly love either one of these teams in that aspect right now.
Well, I love Nick Chubb regardless. He did very well against the Patriots last week. Unfortunately, fumbled the ball twice, but the guy had 120 yards against the best defense in the league. They did what we didn't think they would do, but we told them they should do. Glad that Fred Kitchens listened, which was run him. Even if things were going astray, don't completely go away from him. They did go astray, and they didn't go away from him completely. And this is kind of the inverse of the situation we were just talking about with the Falcons and with the Chargers. They're late in a game and they're down by a lot and they're running the ball and they have to be passing. This is a different story. He is a dynamic back, and he can you just, even if you're down, you just got to keep running him, and especially for Baker's sake, in order to make them respect the run enough so he's not getting clobbered back there, they have to use him. I do agree that it could be a turnover fest. I don't know that either quarterbacks will throw a touchdown. I don't think either will certainly throw more than one touchdown. You may see one touchdown thrown by Baker, and that's it. He hasn't had a multiple touchdown game since last season. And the Broncos' backfield is, I think, their only hope because of this Brandon Allen kid. Emmanuel Sanders is gone. Cortland Sutton, though he's a good receiver, not so great without being the main guy without an Emmanuel Sanders. I think Royce Freeman's the better running back, ground back of the running backs. So you'll see a little more of him, even though he split carries pretty evenly with Lindsey. But Lindsey, I think, will catch the ball more. I think the Browns are going to get themselves a win here, just because I think the Broncos could do something with Flacco there. This guy's an unknown, and based on the stuff I gave you, it doesn't sound promising, and, I think the Browns will go ahead and get themselves a win here. It's a 39 over and under, as I said. Broncos are getting 3.5. Broncos go into this game sitting at 2-6, and Browns are not much better, 2-5. They haven't hit their bye week yet. I will say moving forward.
Who's that? Browns have hit their bye week at 2-5.
Yes, I'm sorry. The Broncos haven't hit their bye week yet, because they're 2-6. Sorry. Moving forward, the Browns still got to play the Bills, Steelers a couple times. They do get the Cardinals, Bengals, Dolphins, but they also have to play. They have to play the Bengals twice. They got the Ravens, so they're not great. So it's not like any of these teams that are so might not take a steal win from. On the flip side, the Vikings looks a little raucous for them. They got the Broncos. I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. And an elephant's faithful, 100%. Broncos have the Vikings ahead of them, the Bills, the Chargers, the Texans, Chiefs, Lions. So a little tougher of a go. But I do think the Broncos will get it done here today. Let's move on to Sunday Night Football. The New England Patriots with possibly their biggest test of the season. Can't fault them for the schedule. It is what it is. The AFC East sucks outside of Buffalo. Over-under is 45, and the Ravens are getting 3.
Okay, that to me, that's legit. I will, I guess I'll say this. Let's talk historically. Ravens have been one of the biggest bugaboos for Tom Brady and the Patriots, meaning they've played them as tough as anyone historically. Let me ask you a question, something that I've said several times. You also have said it. We agree on. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. Over the long haul, how do you beat those teams? What do you have to do?
You gotta be able to put that pressure on them, not just from the outside, but more so up the middle. You got to be able to bring it from that interior.
And from how many guys?
All 4. You just need, if you can have a 4-man front and let everyone be back in coverage, and those 4 guys can get it done in the front, that's how you beat them.
So you got to beat them with 4 guys. You cannot be bringing the blitz. They destroy the blitz.
Yes.
Unfortunately for the Baltimore Ravens, as well as they've been playing, and again, off a good showing against Seattle on the road, which was a very impressive win.
Give me their blitzing stats.
Well, what I'm going to tell you is they have one of the worst defensive sack rates in the NFL, the Baltimore Ravens. They have one. They're giving up a ton through the passing game. You are not going to beat Brady with the blitz. You're not going to. It's just not going to happen. I don't care who you are. I don't care if I am one of his receivers. You are not going to beat Brady with the blitz. So the fact that they are going to struggle to get at Brady just leads me to believe that's where this game's going to be won or lost. I think this will be probably the most competitive game, maybe even more so than the Bills game that Brady's played when you watch it from the eye test. I mean, Bills were still within 1 score. I don't know how you don't beat them, because I think if their sack rates are low, they're going to have to send pressure, and that's where Brady will kill you. You're not going to outsmart this guy. He's the GOAT for a reason, and that to me is the difference. Do I think that offensively the Patriots can give that defense some fits that they haven't had yet? Absolutely, because I don't think
this is not the Baltimore defense that we're used to.
Yeah, but on the offensive side, I will say this. I look at Josh Allen and the way that he plays, and I would almost say that this Baltimore team is somewhat similar yet more prolific from a quarterback rushing perspective with Lamar Jackson. They do have the ability to go over the top. They are getting Marquise Brown back healthy, and they're getting someone else is coming back. Who am I missing? I'm forgetting the name.
Andrews?
No. Jimmy Smith on the defensive end is coming back.
Yeah.
Is coming back too as well. But Earl Thomas may be out in this game in the secondary. But I do think, when you look at Baltimore, where I do
It
like,
doesn't matter because they could, they could put their best cornerback on on the Patriots' best receiver, even if he moved in the slot and covered him.
Right.
It goes to everybody. Ball goes to everybody.
But I go to offense and I look at the game plan that Buffalo played, which was the toughest game they played, which is a mobile quarterback being able to maybe throw a little bit more over the top. I think Baltimore is a better version of that type of game plan. I think, Baltimore struggles running the ball outside of Lamar Jackson. Mark Ingram really struggles at times to get going.
He's a touchdown guy, not a yardage guy.
Yeah, so I think that's where I think this game can be very competitive. I just think in the end, if you put the football in Tom Brady's hand, the fact that they can't get to him, Tom Brady can pick apart a 7-man, coverage system if you give him enough time. And certainly he destroys the blitz. So I just think that's where this game is the difference. And I think, they could win. They could even win handily, though I would expect this to be more of a more competitive game.
So who is Belichick taking away in this game? Because that's what he does. He takes away one of your best offensive options. I think they may use a guy like Hightower to spy Lamar Jackson, but I do think at the end of the day, it may not be so much taking someone out of the game. I think they're going to try to take away the running game and the running ability of Lamar Jackson, force him to throw the ball.
Yeah, they're going to force him to throw the ball, and nobody's better at defensively disguising coverages than he is.
Yep.
And so when you disguise coverages against a guy that has a tendency to get turnovers when that happens,
yep,
that's it.
Do I think it's going to be competitive like you said? Yeah. 45 over under. We're not picking these anymore, but I'll tell you right now, I would go under all day. I don't think it's going to go over. Just like you said, look at that Bills game. It was a 16-10 game, okay? But +3 that the Pats are only having to give 3, all day.
Yeah.
All day I'll take the Patriots there, buddy. Their lines have been double digits all year, maybe sans the first game. And I think that this is their best opponent, at least to date, that they're playing. It won't matter. It won't matter. It won't matter. I think the Patriots go ahead and win this game. They may not roll them. I do expect to be competitive. I definitely think they'll win by more than 3, but I do think it'll be lower scoring. I think it'll be, they're gonna really, really try on Baltimore's side to keep the ball away from Brady. How? Running the football, whether it be with Jackson, Ingram, or whoever. But I think a lot of people have been the one. If they're nitpicking on the Patriots as great as they've been, it's been discussion about, well, they haven't played anybody. Their offense sometimes doesn't look as great as you think because the opponents they're playing aren't as good. Though the Ravens may be the biggest or the best matchup they've had this year, again, the Baltimore defense is not the same as we're used to, even with Jimmy Smith back. So that defense isn't anything to speak of, and I think the Patriots handle it. Final game of the week. We have Monday Night Football, New York City. You want to go? You want to go? I
do want to go.
I got tickets. Tickets. Anybody want tickets?
Can I go?
Message me. Good seats as well as the Dallas Cowboys come to MetLife Stadium, and my New York Giants welcome them in for our second meeting. The first meeting we lost. Eli Manning was at the helm. First game of the year. Went to Jerry World. Didn't work out so well for us. Not so good, buddy. I don't like the Cowboys. And that was without Ezekiel Elliott really getting much. It was his first game back from being on the holdout. I think he only had like 15 touches in that game, and they still clobbered us 35-17. It wasn't even that close. The last touchdown was in garbage time. Over-under is 40 and 48, so they're expecting points in this game. I could see that. They're giving us 7.5. I'm not trying to be a homer. I could definitely see the Giants getting within that game. It's a divisional game. I know we got beat up last time. This one's at home. Daniel Jones. We got a full complement of weapons, although I don't know if Sterling's going to be back or not. I don't know that much matters anymore. Again, I've said it before. I love the guy, but his career may be over. He's had multiple concussion seasons since he's entered the league, and I just think for the guy's health's sake, he might need to consider stepping away. He is a little guy. But we've found some things with the rookie Darius Slayton at wide receiver. We still have Evan Ingram. We still have Golden Tate. Saquon's in the backfield getting it on. I like it. I think Danny first of all, I like the pickup of Leonard Williams from the Jets. I think that'll help slow Zeke down. I think Zeke will still have a great game. I think he'll have a better game than the first game simply because he's going to touch the ball more than 15 times like he did in that first game. But I do feel like the Giants have gotten better, even on the defensive side of the ball where it's been not great. I think we could keep this game close. I think we can win this game, bro. It's we do not like this team, and most of the time it doesn't matter what the records are. I think we can win this game, bro. We're coming off a loss to Detroit that we took that I wasn't very fond of, and a loss that I'm very unhappy about at home to Arizona. I think we can pick ourselves up off the mat here and make Dallas look stupid, much like the Jets did when Dallas came to town.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that I like about this is I look back and I did it when you had your first game of the year. I look back at the history and one of the things that was not a recipe for winning recently, and Dallas is on a 5-game winning streak against the Giants right now. But that being said, the games in New York, the last game in New York was more competitive. I kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. It was near the end of the year. You get to that whether teams need to win. But the big difference to me is Daniel Jones can do something that Eli Manning couldn't do in the last several games, which is pass down the field. The weapons are getting better than those last few games. I just think this is a time where you could see some interesting things out of the Giants' offense. Stats say that the Cowboys should win this game, or at least certainly on paper. But I just, there's something about the Giants I like. I like what they did last week. I think they recovered from a tough game against Arizona pretty well, and I could definitely see them covering, and I could see it getting scoring. I could see some scoring going on, so I think it'd be real interesting. I do like the Giants to definitely take the points and maybe even put a little shocker.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's not beyond the realm of possibilities as long as Jason Garrett's the head coach. I'm sorry, Dallas fans. You probably are in agreement with me. You've made some great strides over the years with Garrett there, but don't get it twisted. You will never, and I'm not just saying this as a New York Giants fan and I don't like the Cowboys. I'm just taking an objective look overall at the NFL coaching teams, the way they play. You will never Never win a Super Bowl so long as Jason Garrett is the head coach. You will never. You won't. Not gonna that. Just won't. Okay? Don't believe me? Time will tell. And you can come back and get me when it does happen, which will be when?
Never.
Never.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say, he's had lots of chances. Most coaches don't
He's
get the kind of chances.
Man. He's the marionette. And Jerry Jones is pulling his strings. And that's the only reason his job's always safe when they start to go in the gutter. Because Jerry Jones knows that he's just his puppet. And he's not going to fire himself. Okay?
He does, in a way, remind me a little bit of Lovie Smith. Is when the chips are down, he does figure out a way to resurrect his job, but then falls back into that habit of going backwards. Remember, too, that Jason Garrett's history with this team is significant. He was a backup quarterback to Troy Aikman for a long, long time. He was that guy they just would not get rid of. And there was already talk probably 2/3 of the way into Troy Aikman's career that, Garrett was being groomed as a head coach. And granted, I give him learning behind a guy like Troy Aikman is a good thing. He kind of understanding things. He was a clipboard guy. I mean, this was back when the NFL, you rostered 3 quarterbacks, whereas now you practice squad your third quarterback. Yep. And so it's a little bit different kind of league than at this point. But You know, that's just who he is. Jerry Jones, he does it his way. He reminds me a lot like with a different personality, but a lot like Al Davis.
Yeah.
You question a lot of moves.
Heavily owner that's heavily involved in
he's a GM.
the intricacies
He's a GM.
of the actual team and how it runs.
Unlike Daniel Schneider, though, he does know some about football because he does put winners on the field at times. They're just not Super Bowl winners.
Yeah.
Whereas Daniel Snyder just puts poo on the field.
I think this could be. I know that this could be. We've seen some good things out of Daniel Jones. This, I think, is a coming out party for him. Believe it or not, this is a statement.
Diana
game.
Ross style.
Diana Ross style, baby. Statement game. He's going to come win in front of the home crowd against the Dallas Cowboys, one of our biggest rivals. And everybody that already likes Daniel Jones is going to love him even more after this. So Giants going to go ahead and get things done Monday night.
You heard it here.
Yeah, baby. Go Big Blue. Now on the bye this week, we have the Atlanta Falcons, the New Orleans Saints, the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Los Angeles Rams. So they'll get back to it next week. That's it, folks. We will get this out and up as soon as we can. We appreciate y'all listening. As always, we will see you next time on the Gridiron. Have a wonderful Halloween.